Hi everybody, I'm Xander from the Teen Press Corps, and I'm here with Pete Souza. Great to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Welcome back to Austin. He is the author of Shade, and he's very shady, isn't that right?
I don't know, that's what some people tell me.
He's pretty shady. So, how did you come up with the title for Shade? Was it you, or did someone inspire you?
Well, I mean, what I started doing on Instagram was trolling Trump. And another way to say that is I was throwing shade at him. And so the original title was Throwing Shade. And my editor at Little Brown thought everybody knows if you just say shade. And so that's what we did. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite picture you took throughout Obama's presidency or in your entire life?
You know, for me, especially during the Obama presidency, it was always about trying to create the best photographic archive. So it was day in, day out, trying to make interesting pictures, storytelling pictures, pictures for history, the little moments that tell you something about him as a person, not just as a president. And so I'll let other people sift through my 1.9 million photos and decide which ones they like the best. But for me, it's the body of work that matters.
That's impressive. 1.9 million photos.
That's a lot of photos.
How much storage does that take up?
Well, you can do the math. You know, each raw file is probably 24, 25 megabytes times 1.9 million. It's a lot.
All right, someone comment that down below because I want to know.
It's a lot.
So, as a presidential photographer, do you get unlimited SD cards?
No. I mean, I reuse the same cards all the time.
Okay.
And the only time that we would get new ones is you know, a couple times we had cards get corrupted, and then so we started every couple years getting new cards just so that because you know you don't want to have history corrupted.
Yeah.
Right? So
that would not be good.
No.
Okay, if you could have been photographer for any other U.S. president or world leader, who would it be?
Abraham Lincoln.
That's awesome. Why?
Well, I mean, think of the historic nature of his presidency and the stress that he must have been under when really it was, you know, just the most, it really, I think during at the end of the Civil War when Lincoln was dealing with slavery and the Union and, you know, Confederates, it was just a historic time, and you know, I've seen the movie Lincoln, and it's a Hollywood version of what it must have been like. But I just think if I could have been a fly on the wall making images during his presidency, it just would have been incredible.
What is one of your favorite travel experiences that you photographed? Or the best place to take pictures?
Well, I mean, this may not be the exact answer to your question, but of all the places that I travel to, the trip that is forever seared in my mind, almost as much as the Obama presidency, is when I went to Afghanistan after 9/11 and was there as the war started, and just the ordeal of, you know, traveling in that country before journalists were really allowed in, and being there when Kabul fell, and having, you know, some close calls with rocket-propelled grenades and things like that. So maybe not the kind of photography that people think of as, like, you know, the greatest place to go, but it was an amazing experience, and you know, and I'll never forget it as long as I live.
When you travel, do you take touristy photos like everybody else, or do you try to find things people haven't taken pictures of that sometimes before?
I mean, when I traveled with President Obama, I may have one main subject, and it's hard to sort of break away from the bubble, the presidential bubble, and get out and make pictures. Now, yeah, I do. I mean, this past summer, we have a cabin in Michigan, and I was taking pictures of mushrooms, so just because they were kind of cool. So I like photography. I like all kinds of photography, including scenic pictures, and so I do all kinds of photography.
So, what place is number one on your bucket list that you want to go to?
Antarctica.
Yeah.
That's number one. Probably number two is Galapagos. I'm going to try every way I can to get to Antarctica before I leave this place. It's like the one place I really want to go.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I tried to get President Obama to go. Yeah.
I was trying to convince the president to.
I was trying to shame him into going because at one point the president of China went. And I was kind of like, you're going to let the president of China go to Antarctica? You're not going to go.
Oh, that's hilarious.
But it was just logistically for a president of the United States to go to Antarctica. It's just like impossible.
Imagine.
But he did promise me that if he goes as a former president, because it'd be easier, easier logistically to go. He said he would take me with him. So, but I sort of want to go on
Got
my
that to
own.
look forward to. Oh, okay. Maybe you can come in for a week or whatever.
And just leave me behind.
Yeah.
I'll find a way home somehow. Yeah.
That's awesome. Have you faced a lot of criticism and backlash for being so shady, and how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I do. I get some nasty emails. I usually know when someone has picked up one of my Instagram posts and written a story about it, like if it, Reddit or Yahoo News or Huffington Post or something like that. Because as soon as that happens, that's when I start to get, a lot of hate mail. And I just go, some of them are pretty funny.
Yeah.
Because they're, just so bad grammatically, and it's like, calling me an a-hole and just like not making really much sense. And so I find them amusing at times. Some of them are a little disturbing. And it does go to show that, I think the way I present my shade is pretty topical and at times humorous and sarcastic. And, compared to what the President of the United States says on Twitter now, I think I'm pretty tame. So it's kind of funny that people react so violently when I, say something like anything. Like I'm a private citizen, I'm allowed to, speak my mind. So I don't know why people get so upset when I do.
It's good that you find it funny.
Most of the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't. Sometimes it's actually kind of disturbing, but yeah.
So when you came and talked at Texas Book Festival last year, you had mentioned John Moore being one of your favorite photographers. And he's
Did I? Yeah,
Yes.
I love John Moore.
and
I don't remember saying that, but I'm sure I did, because I do think highly of him.
yeah, and he's one of my favorite photographers too. Who are some of your favorite photographers recently, and how do you find photographers and photos? What's your main
Yeah,
source?
I follow I follow a lot of photographers on Instagram, and that's sort of how I keep up with what people are doing currently. Photographers are actually, I think one of the most useful things about Instagram is for professional photographers, because it's a way for them to showcase their work. And I find it a valuable way for me, sort of not interacting directly with photographers that much anymore, for me to keep up with what people are doing. And the reason I mentioned John Moore, was that this year or last year?
Last year, I believe, yeah.
He has done such great work on immigration, like documenting all different sides of the immigration problem, and so I just admire that he's stuck to it for more than a decade, really. Photographers that it's funny. There's a photographer that has very few followers in Pittsburgh called Steph Chambers. I've never met her, and she does a lot of high school sports, and her high school. She does, she's right in the middle of football season now, and her work is just incredible. And so, she's now somebody that I follow that I didn't follow a year ago. I didn't even know she existed. And like I said, I've never met her. I did write her a note of encouragement. So I like seeing new photographers like that I've never heard of, and seeing the kind of work they're doing. I'm sort of paying attention to the photographers from the Washington Post and the New York Times and how they're covering the Trump presidency and the impeachment hearings. And I think there's a lot of good work being done by multiple photographers in covering the politics of DC right now. So, and I could, probably, I'd have to look at my Instagram account to see who else I'm following now, because I can't remember off the top of my head. But I do follow a lot of them. Because I had worked at the Reagan administration for 5.5 years and had followed and actually had photographed as a photographer for the Tribune, and had photographed both Clinton and Bush a little bit. I think I knew how the presidency worked pretty well with President Obama. So I don't think there were any real surprises.
You already have the lane.
Yeah.
So when you are faced with the current climate and situation, and you get down, what lifts you up? What brings you joy? Hope?
Well, I think what brings me hope is that when I make my public presentations, it's usually to a very receptive audience, and so it's hopeful to me that there's a lot of like-minded individuals around the country that feel the same way I do. And I'm especially hopeful by the younger generation. And it just seems that the vast majority of the younger generation is a lot more progressive than we give them credit for being. And so I sort of feel hopeful for that. I've also lived through, I'm old enough to, today's the anniversary of Kennedy assassination, which I was in third or fourth grade at the time, and that was a real dark period for our country. We went through Watergate, another presidency that we had a corrupt president who eventually resigned. Those were really dark days. And, in 9/11, what was that? It was already 18 years ago. Really trying time for the country. And we've always been able to recover from events like that. So I have no doubt that eventually, this country will get back on track, and we'll have a president that, respects the office more than the current one does, who is ethical and moral and legal.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I just realized it's November 22nd. I can register to vote now. It'll be 18 in 2 months exactly.
You can register 2 months before you turn 18?
Yeah.
So you get to vote next year?
Yeah.
That's right.
For shade.
You'll be able to vote in the primary?
Yeah.
When's the primary in Texas? It's probably late.
Yeah, I think it is late.
It's like probably April or May.
Something like that. Yeah.
So it may be over, but it may not be over. It's possible.
Yeah.
In terms of, the Democratic nominee, it could go a while.
It'll be interesting.
Yeah.
What is it like talking about your experience with Obama all the time and presenting about your book? You said that a lot of like-minded people are there. So is it kind of cathartic? Do you enjoy reliving it and reflecting on those moments?
I mean, I enjoy giving people an inside view of what it was like through my eyes, and sort of try to tell the stories behind some of the pictures and some of the important times during his presidency. And I mean, today, because I was speaking to a lot of history, social studies teachers, I also did a segment with of my Reagan images, and the comment afterwards from one young teacher to me really struck a chord. Was that this is her first job teaching. She's just out of college and she's teaching history, and because of what's going on, she said that she had become cynical about the presidency, and that I had given her some hope by showing two different presidents from 30 years apart, one Republican, one Democrat, who respected the office, and she said to me now that she's changed her mind about the presidency, and it's not going to be as cynical about it. So I felt good about that.
Yeah, you're having an impact. It's
Yeah.
awesome. And what does photography mean to you?
I mean, photography means I have no idea what I would be doing with my life if not for photography. It has given me a ticket and a front row seat to so many things that I so appreciate that I had the opportunity to witness, to photograph, and it's kind of incredible some of the places I've gotten to go and people I've gotten to meet, just because of photography. Really, and as I sort of, I'm on the downward track of my life. So you start now when you hit 60 to look back at some of the things you've done, and I just feel so fortunate, and having spent 8 years with that guy and 5.5 with President Reagan, and many of the other world experiences I've had.
What is playing such a big part in that history? How does that make you feel?
Well, I don't know that played a part. I think that I was, especially with President Obama, really able to, visually document his presidency in probably a much more extensive way than maybe any other president has ever been documented. I don't know. And these are pictures. All my pictures are now at the National Archives and will be available for generations to come, for people to get a glimpse of what it was like during his presidency and maybe learn something about him. And so that's important to me.
Yeah. And how do you decide where to take the picture from? How do you angle yourself? Is that a brain thing, or is it you've got to get these shots, or is it more of a feeling?
It's intuitive, and it's 30 years of experience. And it's hard to like, articulate that to, the lay person. But it's just a lot of experience and trial and error and making mistakes early on in my career and anticipating things and paying attention to what's going on, paying attention to your composition and framing and light and all those things just sort of come together, in your brain in a very intuitive way. Cartier-Bresson, the famous French photographer, once said that your worst pictures are your first 10,000 pictures.
Heard that before.
And I think that's a valid statement to make, because I think photography, to be good at photography it's not easy, at least for most people. Mm-hmm. And you have to work at it, and you have to make mistakes, and you have to get critiqued. And I think it's as you, at least for me, as I've gone on in my career, I think I've gotten better as a photographer. I mean, I may be slower in some aspects, just because I'm older, but I think that, I'm sort of, I think I have a better sense of what makes a good picture.
Yeah, for sure. Practice. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Anything else you want to say? The paperback edition
I'm
of
done.
Shade is out.
I'm tired of talking already. Yeah, no, so this is what you're showing.
Yes.
This came out last year, and then there's a softcover edition, because usually you follow hardcover with a softcover edition. And instead of just putting out a softcover edition, we added 60 new pages. So it's been updated.
That's really exciting.
With more shade.
Yeah.
Because so much has happened since the original edition.
We just keep reprinting thicker and thicker copies.
Well, we'll do it if we do the new softcover edition is red, and has a red cover. So next fall, I guess it'll have to be white. Yeah. Right, red, white, and blue. Mm-hmm. And then hopefully my goal is that will be the last edition, because we won't need any more after that. Yeah. That's what I'm hoping for. So it may be up to you, though, since you're going to be voting.
Wow. Throw shade and vote. Pick up a copy of Shade by Pete Souza, and thank you so much.
Sure, and get other people out to vote too.
Yes.
Register other people to vote.
Yes, that's very important.